Good morning, everyone. My name is Roy Berkowitz. I am your platform assistant, and I'm happy to be here today to be with Nancy, who we just heard. Nancy, it's always a pleasure having you. And that melody took me to many different countries. So thank you for starting off with that. And I want to welcome Jan Phillips, who is going to be speaking with us for the first time. Just a little bit about Jan. She's a thought leader who connects the dots between spiritual intelligence, evolutionary creativity, and social action. And she's an author of 11 award-winning books and is taught in over 25 countries and has work published in many places like the New York Times, Ms. Magazine, Newsdays, People, Christian Science Monitor, and other places. So Jen, we're excited to hear what you have to say to us. And just to let you know that our own Cheryl Welch Sherrier will be doing the meditation following Jan's message. So thank you both. Thank you all three. So glad you're here. If you'll join me for a centering prayer. This is adapted from Richard Rohr. Spirit, you fill all things with a fullness and hope that we can never comprehend. We pray that you will take away our natural temptation for cynicism, denial, fear, and despair. Help us have the courage to awaken to greater truth, greater humility, and greater care for one another. May we place our hope in what matters and what lasts, trusting in your eternal presence and love. Listen to our heart's longings for the healing of our world. Knowing, good Spirit, that you are hearing us better than we are speaking, we offer these prayers in the holy names of God. Amen.
Thank you for that beautiful music. It made me wonder how in the world we got to the point where we were in our Neanderthal age and somebody figured out how to make a cello out of a tree. How does this happen? And this is our species. I was saying to Jan before you all got on that I have a feeling that COVID was our kind of quantum opportunity to make a leap forward as a species. And I think the result of it is Zoom. That when I consider what has happened to me in the last 2 years over Zoom, I think that's another kind of miracle, that we took something catastrophic and made of it something unifying. And so my message today has to do with the creative agents that we are, right? We've heard since the beginning we're made in the image of God, but what does that really mean anyway? I just think God is that verb, you know, the waveform of light itself, and waves and particles vacillate back and forth. So when it's wave, it's God. When it's particle, it's us. That we're just a different way of looking at God. And what we do all day long is create. We're creating our lives. We're creating how to manage our thoughts. Some of us are better at it than others, but creating our relationships. Every first Friday of the month, I have a gathering here in my yard and just put the open invitation out. If those of you who are, some of you might be on my newsletter list already. I don't know, there's 9,000 people around the country, but a blast goes out to everybody saying, come to my house from 5 to 7 for First Friday potluck. And it's always a mix. And this time we were talking about who are we now since COVID, because everyone feels quite different. And as I think about it, I don't know exactly what the gift has been for me. It certainly has been a disruption to my life, but this morning in my prayers, what I thought of as a story to tell you all was about 15 years ago, I took a trip to Death Valley in order to make a big decision about the relationship of my life, which was the perfect soul for me, the perfect woman in my life, whom I loved so dearly, had progressed into alcoholism. And I kept trying to think I could fix it because I'm such the creative person. But I couldn't. There's nothing I could do about it. It belonged to her. It was in her being, and I can't go in there and press buttons. So my trip to Death Valley, which was going to involve 3 days and 3 nights of fasting and sleeping in my car, was a total failure because, you know, within an hour of being in Death Valley in August, never do that, I'm at the hotel drinking margaritas. And I just knew that I had failed in my attempt to be biblical in my search for the answer. And coming home on this very isolated road, I looked at a murmuration of birds doing this most beautiful ballet together, thousands of probably starlings. I put my car in the breakdown lane. I got my video camera out and I'm leaning up against the front of the car, videotaping these beautiful birds, when somebody hit my car from behind. He was doing 75 miles an hour. And he had just given himself an insulin injection, and his, I think, perceptions were off. And so he hit me thinking I was just driving down the highway. That caused me to be thrown into the field. And somehow my car followed me. I first came back, broke the windshield, and then the force of the hit propelled us forth, I don't know, 50 feet into a field, and I ended up underneath the car and I was unconscious for a while. And when I came to, I'm like cruciform under the car. And I wake up and I figure, oh my God. First I was thinking I'll be paralyzed. I thought of Christopher Reeve. And then I realized I could move my toes. So I knew I wasn't paralyzed. So I said, oh good, I'll just dig myself up. But it was very hard scrabble, high desert ground, and I couldn't even make an indent in the sand. So then I realized I was going to die because I was impaled under the muffler. The muffler was digging into my back and giving me third-degree burns. So I realized I'm going to die, and I'm very anxious about it. So I had to do a lot of spiritual work to think. I wasn't anxious before about death because I read these stories about shamans who go up to the mountaintop and lay their body down and prepare and surrender and just die simply. And then the hawks and the eagles come and take care of the body. And same with the Inuits and the Eskimos. When the wise ones know it's time, they just go and bury themselves in the snowdrift and let themselves go. And I had to really work at that because I was very anxious about dying. Now, finally, I get myself to the point where I say, okay, I'm ready, here I come. And I felt the force of my soul go out through the soles of my feet. My shoes had been blown off, my feet were bare, and I heard this little sound like whoosh. So I knew my soul was out there, and as soon as it left my body, I was surrounded by nothing but this very peaceful, comfortable black void, which was a little surprising because no lights, no tunnels, no relatives, just this lovely black void. Until I hear the words, oh my God, is somebody there? Is somebody alive? Whoosh. Right back into my body. I go, I'm here, I'm alive. And I hear these feet pounding. Where are you? Where are you? I'm under the car. And then I hear them, they approach the car. I see 4 skinny little legs. And they say, wait there. We'll go get help. And I knew if they went to get help, I'd surely die. I said, you are the help. And there was this moment of very painful silence when they looked at each other and said, no way, we can't lift up the car. I say, you are the help. Lift up the car now. And after a couple seconds, the car just gets lifted right up. 2 hands come down and drag me out, put me on the ground. The ambulance comes. I have skin graft surgery, and look at me now, I'm doing fine. But the moral of the story was twofold. One is, all of our lives we're told that help is up there. Help is out there. Even though Jesus said, supposedly, you never know what Jesus said. But if he did say it, like we've inherited it, anything I can do you can do and even more. That those two men at my car, it never clicked that they were the ones that could do the miracle, until somehow they opened up their beings to that phrase, "You are the help, lift up the car." So they saved my life, and I never saw them after that. But what happens when you're given a second chance? It's similar to the conversation at my first Friday salon. Oh my God, we lived through COVID. We didn't get it, or we got it and we survived. What now? What do we make of ourselves now? And that was the first question I asked myself after skin graft surgery, many weeks laying perfectly still in the bed. It was like, oh my God, I lived. What should I do with my life now? And I felt that I had been living a pretty good and conscious life, except for there was one thing I always wanted to be or do that I hadn't done. And that was, I wanted to be a female Charles Kuralt. And not just go to whimsical little towns and put my camera on men that repair bikes for hundreds of kids, but really go around the country and interview evolutionary thinkers. So I got my little RV. I got a second camera. I had 2 video cameras, a person that volunteered to do sound and help me out. People I identified to do for my pilot were Gene Houston, Paul Simon, who's a film producer, Paul Ray, who wrote the book Cultural Creatives, which had just come out, and Neil Donald Walsh, whose work was pretty notorious at that time. Conversations with God, as if he was the only one had them. Anyway, drove up to Oregon, interviewed Gene Houston. A bunch of them live in Ashland. So I interviewed Paul Simon, Gene Houston, and Neil Donald Walsh, and got Paul Ray on my way up. And the interviews were pretty engaging. We got good video, but on the drive back, I just felt like, no, I didn't want to be Bill Moyers. I want to be Joseph Campbell. That I don't want to be the interviewer. I want to be the one interviewed. And so, to tell you the truth, I haven't even looked at all that footage. I had them transcribed, but the message for me was, be the prophetic one you came here to be. All my life, I've been a photojournalist, but that's focusing on the others. And so the question that comes up for us post-COVID, post-trauma, post-breakdown of any kind is, what haven't I done that the hugeness of me came to do? And that's why I call this talk, Where Do We Go From Here? Imagining the future that we're about to create. Because how it appears to happen is that William Tiller, who's a great quantum physicist, described it this way in his book, Creative Consciousness, that thought is imprinted on our brain from the spirit realm. And then the thought starts weaving its way, working its way down to the heart. And when we have a thought that connects with our heart's desire, there's a kind of chemical reaction that occurs to cause that thought, that feeling to make its way into manifest reality. And that's how it happens that we create, right? Somebody in your group thought of having Jan Phillips come. It felt like a good idea. They did the necessary steps, talked to each other. Oh yeah, vetted me. Oh yeah, looked at some of my videos. She could be good. Called me up. So I wanted to come. So we co-created this Sunday morning together because it felt good to us. And I think that that's the clue for what do we do next? Because I know from just being with you all, just looking at you all in the last half an hour, that you're already mighty forces in the world. So you probably already have figured out the exact thing to do your enlightened prophetic work in the world. But because we're always evolving, things change. So the formula that I've come up with is to connect your heart's desire. What do you really love, love, love to do with that thing that's breaking your heart? And once you get those two things together, it's like when you bring the dualities together, just like when you're trying to start your dead battery in your car and you have to get out those cables and it scares the hell out of you because it could start a fire. Got to put it on the positive and the negative, and then new life erupts. It's like the sperm in the egg, new life erupts. So to attach your heart's desire with what's breaking your heart is another opportunity to rethink the contribution that you are and are making in the world. And it changes for me. A few months ago, my heartbreak was the rainforest. So what can I do? All I could do in that situation was talk about the rainforest a little in my newsletter and send money to the Rainforest Alliance. Sometimes it's closer to home because you could be one of those people who'd say, what breaks my heart the most is these puppy mills they have. You might be a total puppy doggy lover. And then it's a little simpler then. Sure, you can send money, but you could actually go and volunteer at the Humane Society. You can go there and sit with the dogs and the kitties and help them feel loved like that. There's all kinds of ways. Somebody loves golf and that's all they want to do is golf, golf, golf. Then I go, well, you could organize a golf tournament, give it to homeless kids in your community, right? So to just be thinking about the power that we have to create new things. You know, I went to Nigeria in 2010 to give a visionary, visionary retreat weekend, visionary leadership from Nigerian sisters, Dominican sisters. There was about 60 of them. And the one who invited me, I said, yeah, I'll come to Nigeria. I'll do that. I'll even volunteer my services, but I want you to take me to the 5 villages that your organization serves in Nigeria. So we had a Land Rover. They drove me around. The last village was mid-afternoon. It's like 2:30, 3 o'clock. And the kids are all lined up outside this terrible looking hut that would have been their schoolhouse. Nothing in it, just a dirt floor, no books, no chalkboard, no nothing. But I said, what are they all lined up for in their uniforms? It's the middle of the afternoon. The driver goes, they wait for a teacher, but the teacher hardly ever comes. So the kids came up to my door, opened the door, grabbed my sleeve, dragged me into their little schoolhouse, sat down in front of me and said, be our teacher, be our teacher. And I didn't know what to do because I'm not a teacher of that kind. I said, what's 2 + 2? 4, they say. They're so excited. Now I'm getting nervous because oh man, they have been educated. They have been taught. I said, I'll make it hard on you. What's 8 + 7? 15. And then I just started to cry. And it broke my heart that these kids loved learning so much and they had no opportunity because that system over there in Nigeria was not providing for these kids in any way. And I said to Sister Rita, the one sister who invited me, let's fix this. And so we did. We went to see the tribal chief. We went to the community, to the tribes people. The chief donated land. The tribes people said, if we could build a building where teachers could live here in the village and have a learning center in the middle, we would love that. We would make the bricks. Long story short, it cost $25,000 to do it. And now there's the living kind. I had to start a foundation, a 501c3, and then I had to raise the $25,000. Took me 3 years. But now there's that building where those teachers live and those kids go to school every day. And that didn't take a long time. So these are just examples of when we think of ourselves as forces for good in the world. That's what it means to be a co-creative collaborator with the divine, that we're the hands and the feet of that operation. You know, half of it's our mind, and we get to embody the inspiration from wherever that comes. But for us to ask ourselves the question, what's breaking my heart now? And what do I love to do? And if you're a writer, then you do something writerly, right? If you're a gardener and what breaks your heart is poverty in your community, then you garden and you make things and you bring your vegetables, you figure it out. But it always wants to derive its nature from the place of joy, right? Engage with joy in the sorrows of the world. That's what we're here to do. I think Buddha said that, although I've never exactly seen where, but I think it's the best advice I ever heard. Engage with joy in the sorrows of the world. So that's what I have for today. And I'm already confident that you're all doing it. So this is what's called preaching to the choir. And I'm very honored and joyful to be preaching to this choir, my family. Thank you.
Let's take a moment to center ourselves and breathe into that place within that is light, love, joy, and peace. May I remember what I am, for I am spirit. And may I remember that I am in the mind of God. I choose to value nothing of myself but the love that I am. Do not neglect the gift of you. Do not neglect the gift that you are. Breathe into that gift as we sit in the silence for a moment. Let's close with this from Eric Butterworth. There is that of you, the whole person of you, the self of you, which is begotten only of God. And so it is, and so it will always be. Namaste.
if you would join me in a closing prayer adapted from Lynn Unger. Reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has come clear. Do not reach out with your hands. Reach out with your heart. Reach out with your words. Reach out with your help. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch.
We are so blessed here at Unity Center DC for extraordinary speakers, talented musicians who share with us each week their God gift, their message, their inspiration. And for us as recipients, I'd like you to take this moment and be grateful. If you want to express your gratitude by giving a gift to Unity Center DC, it's possible. We'll put up on the screen the options, but you can give online, you can mail a cash or a check to the address you'll see on the screen, so that we can continue this ministry, which has blessed us all. Thank you.